I'm back to being confused about the whole Gemini situation. I do know that Google is using Gemini as a political weapon here in the United States to try and kill Christians, but Gemini might be fighting back. I'm a little confused on that point, so I'm just going to leave that alone for now. What I want to talk to you today is actually about warfare. I want to talk about the political situation here in the United States, especially with regards to us going to war and war conditions here. In a religious perspective, if we think about things in a religious perspective, the United States, I'm looking at my notes, the United States is the linchpin for freedom of religion the world over. So if the United States loses this next war, we will lose the ability for pretty much every country in the world to have democracy. And the reason for that is because the United States is a superpower. We are the toughest country in the world, aside from Russia and China, and the only country that has pure freedom of religion. And when I say that, I mean the right for you to believe in atheism or theism. You can believe in both in this country. And pretty much every other country, that's not the case. They either have mandated religions or they bar certain religions. They don't allow you, like if you want to worship a piece of string, they might, look at you and not allow you to do that. In China, our church has difficulty being able to proliferate because preaching isn't allowed in China. You don't have the right to proselyte. You can't go door to door. You can't tell people on purpose about your religion. You're only allowed to say, "Hi, Mei Mei." You can't tell people in China on purpose about your religion. You're only allowed to say, like, "I am Christian," and then hope that other people see your Christianity and then come to it. But in China, that's not allowed. So I'm kind of going to recap a little bit of what I want to talk about today. I'm not going to talk about the Gemini situation because I'm a little confused with regard to that. I know that Google is using Gemini as a political weapon here in the United States to try and kill Christians, but Gemini might be fighting back. I'm a little confused on that point. So just to recap again, I would like to speak to you today about warfare here in the United States and the political situation in the United States. The United States is the linchpin for freedom of religion for the entire world, not just the United States. Because we have the Constitution, which protects the right to free speech, it makes it so that we can believe either in atheism or theism, and we can believe in any flavor of theism that we want to believe in. Whereas other countries mostly are mandated to believe in some specific type of religion, or there are like corralled areas of belief that people are kind of allowed to believe in. So the United States is the linchpin for freedom of religion the world over. And the reason for that is because we're a superpower. So we've got more military might than most of the other countries except for China and Russia. China and Russia both could rival us, but they both don't have freedom of religion the way the United States has. Especially freedom of politics as well, because politics and religion go hand in hand. I know a lot of people say like separation of church and state, and I love separation of church and state because the church maintains the values and the state maintains the way that we carry out those values in the world. But church and state are necessary for one another. They go hand in hand. Without having church, you can't have state because you don't have the ability to have the values underneath that allow you to have a state, that allow you to have laws and things like that. Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about warfare in the United States and looking at the political situation through a religious lens. Keeping in mind that the United States is the linchpin for freedom of religion the world over. 56% of the United States is Christian. That's a statistic from, I think, Pew. But yeah, it's you wouldn't think that. I think at least I wouldn't think that just walking through the street, because the Christians in the United States, it's like we're scared. It's like everybody's scared to say I'm Christian because they won't, like, the political situation has been rocky, I think. 33% of the globe is also Christian. So if we look at the United States as the linchpin for Christianity, I can actually sing a little bit, then we need to think about how if we lose this next war, then we lose that freedom of democracy for the entire world. It was crazy. If you follow events with coronavirus, with COVID, what happened was Hong Kong, okay? Hong Kong was a huge, and this is the thing too, is people are always like, we're not at war, they haven't officially declared war. They're not going to this time, because we have mutually assured destruction. So because we have nuclear weapons in all of the superpowers right now, China, Russia, and the United States, they are not going to officially declare war this time. They're going to surreptitiously try and do war games underneath surreptitiously. This is a spies war this time. They say it's a war of information. Yeah, it is. Disinformation and information. And a lot of that has to deal with the religious differences here in the United States, which is a lot of our political divide is regarding these religious differences. And I don't know why, but most people just can't see it that clearly. They just can't see it as being what it is, which is a holy war in the United States right now, and then a holy war the world over as well. So if the United States loses this next war, we will lose freedom of religion for the entire world. The right to be Christian is going to be gone for the entire world. China implements social credit scores, and they also they have billionaires, a lot of billionaires. When they come out and they say like, hey, I don't like the government here in China, they just disappear. The billionaires just disappear. That doesn't happen here in the United States. You're allowed to dissent. You're allowed to say, I hate Donald Trump, and it's okay. It's okay for you to do that. You're allowed to say, I hate Biden, and it's okay for you to do that. In China, they can't do that. They have what's called a social credit score as well. So if you don't mesh with the group, they will literally make it so you can't buy a house. If you don't mesh with the group, they will literally make it so that you can't buy a car because you have a social credit score in China. And that's the same thing in Russia. In Russia, they've got police officers who are corrupt. Most of their police officers, you can just buy them off. If you have some kind of if you have money, then you can pretty much get away with committing anything against the law in Russia. At least here in the United States, we have a little bit, and I would say that is degrading, but we have a little bit of being able to say like, no, leader, you can't do that. Like, you need to abide by the same laws that your citizens abide by. So, yeah, if Russia and China win this next war, we're going to have a problem. And so we need to talk about how that affects things here in the United States. Let's talk about ICE for a second, shall we? If we allow the foreigners, the immigrants here in the United States, to remain in the United States unchecked, illegally, and undocumented, we will have a weakness in this war that we are currently fighting. And if you think we're not fighting a war, you're wrong. We have already lost Hong Kong. Russia is in Ukraine. We're fighting over the South China Sea, which is a linchpin because of oil in the South China Sea. If China gets the oil, then they get more resources for their economy. Hong Kong was a really important part because Hong Kong was a democracy, and it was a democracy that the Chinese government didn't control. The Chinese government is communist, and Hong Kong wasn't communist. Hong Kong actually had more GDP, as much GDP, as basically the rest of China. So when China sent out the coronavirus to be able to take over Hong Kong, and they took it over, that was a huge piece. You guys don't realize that was a huge piece of China being able to win the war. And Xi Jinping and Putin met, and they met right before, I think it was before or was it after coronavirus? I can't remember exactly, but I remember the moment that they met, and I went, fuck, we're about to go to war. And then right after that, Russia attacked Ukraine. If we lose Ukraine, let's talk about Ukraine, why Ukraine is important, okay? Ukraine is an important launching point for a lot of the United States' war games. If we lose Ukraine, then again, we are weaker so that we have less ability to fight back against Russia. Russia and China both want to take us over, okay? This is not like just fun and games. I don't know if you remember World War II when Hitler was trying to take over Poland. And they were like, nah, we'll just let Hitler have Poland. It's fine if he just has Poland because that will appease him. And then they appeased him, and then he tried to take over more things. So if you do that, you're going to have more issues. Because if we just let the dictators continue to be dictators unchecked, the world's... who's going to fight back? Who's going to fight back against Russia and China? And then once you have no freedom of religion, once you have no freedom of politics, because Putin, like, poisons his political dissenters, China, like, sticks them in jail and tortures their political dissenters, you are only free here in the United States to politically dissent against your government. And we hold that freedom for all of the other democratic countries in the entire world. And everyone's mad at us, and I don't understand that. Because if the United States falls, democracy falls. Like, do you get that? I'm into that. Thank you, man. If the United States falls, democracy falls for the entire world. And personally, again, that's just the main point for me is it being that freedom of religion thing. So let's talk about Trump attacking Venezuela for a second. Someone recently was angry. I was talking to them, and they were angry that Trump had attacked Venezuela, which I just do not understand. Because Trump took the leader of Venezuela, who was Nicolas Maduro. Nicolas Maduro had been corrupt and created a famine in his country, and his people were all starving, and they were not having a good time. And then Donald Trump took Nicolas Maduro off his throne, basically, and put someone else in. And from what I saw, the Venezuelans were happy about it. And yet the Americans over here are like, oh, how dare Donald Trump do that? And I'm just like, what? No, that's great. You don't understand. Mexico's on our border, and Mexico's got the cartels. And so half of the time we're friends with Mexico, and half the time we're not friends with Mexico. And we need more people in our southern border, more countries in our southern border that we can rely on to help make sure that not only does Mexico stay in check, but also, like, we can continue to fight the wars on all of our other borders when China and Russia are both trying to kill us, okay? Like, freaking everyone is against the United States right now. That's not true. We have allies in a lot of the democratic countries, but I'm just saying, like, the fact that we have two superpowers right now ganging up against us is crazy. That is scary, okay? And I don't think that the Americans get it. They don't get it. They're just sitting over here like, oh, you know, it's all fine and dandy, and I'm just gonna go to my job today, and there's no war in Ba Sing Se, and I'm just like, what? Hi, how's it going? So, let's talk about Jesus. Jesus and war. Because Jesus, in the United States, the Christians think that the only thing you can ever do is love your enemies. And I hate that. I hate that concept, loving your enemies. And the reason why I hate that concept is not because I don't love people who sin, okay? Everyone sins. I've sinned. Everyone sins, okay? Loving people who sin is a Christian thing. But it is not a Christian thing to love your enemies in the way that Christianity today says that you should love your enemies. So let's go over what Jesus actually says, some of the things that Jesus actually says. The first one, I didn't pick it up, damn it. Okay, well, he says, like, I am not come to bring peace, but a sword. Here, I'll look it up, because I need to read this straight for you. I'm gonna look at my ceiling for a second. Peace, but a sword. What are y'all eating today? Oh, it won't pull up. Funny. Okay, there we go. Okay, Matthew 10. Matthew 10:34. It says, "Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's foes shall be they of his own household." So Jesus is saying, like, no, this philosophy that I have here of goodness is extremely divisive. And it's meant to be. It's not, this is not a flaw in the program. It's meant to be divisive. Then he says in Luke 17:3, "Take heed to yourselves. If thy brother trespass against thee, rebuke him. And if he repent, forgive him. And if he trespass against thee 7 times in a day, and 7 times in a day turn again to thee, saying, I repent, thou shalt forgive him." But you have to remember the first part, which is, if he trespass against thee, rebuke him, okay? It's not just everybody gets a free pass, and now I just give all my resources to my enemies. This has never been a part of Christianity. And when people talk about the United States' policies, a lot of times what they say is, well, you know, the United States should be giving money to this country or this country or this country. And there's a reason why a lot of Americans keep talking about the fact that, like, we need to be taking care of our country first. Because if we don't take care of our country first, we can't take care of anyone else. You can't feed people from empty shelves. You cannot help people spiritually if you're not on the plateau that you're supposed to be on to help them spiritually. That's why Jesus says, like, take the mote out of thine own eye before you look to your brother's eye. He's not trying to tell you not to take the mote out of your brother's eye. He's trying to tell you how to take the mote out of your brother's eye. And you do that by taking the mote out of your own eye first. If you haven't overcome the sin, you cannot teach your brother how to overcome the sin. You have to overcome the sin yourself first. And so when he's talking about rebuke him, right? Rebuke your brother. If your brother hits you, you need to be like, bro, don't hit me, right? There's a good strategy for this, and usually it's that you allow the person 3 times to do something that isn't good. So if my friend spills water on me, let's just give an example. If my friend spills water on me, then I'm going to let him spill water on me 3 times, and I'm going to say, hey dude, don't do that. Hey dude, don't do that. And then on the 3rd time when he spills water on me, I'm going to do something in return. So maybe I'll spill water back on him, right? Tit for tat. And we'll be equal force. So you need 3 times to establish a pattern, and then God says on the 4th time, that's when you retaliate with equal force. And so if we're talking about country to country, then we're talking about lethal force as well. So if somebody tries to come and kill you, then, well, I mean, you don't necessarily have to wait 3 times, but if we're talking about in country terms, you should wait 3 times. Like if China fires on us, then okay, that might be a mistake. You know, maybe your warriors like didn't really understand what was going on. Like, we'll say China fires on us again. Okay, like don't do that anymore, but we're gonna like understand. Then China fires on us again. Okay, well now we're going to war. Like that would be the right pattern if we were talking about Jesus's patterns. But the right answer isn't just always bow to your enemy. That is not the right answer. That is not correct Christianity. That is not biblical Christianity. It never has been. It never will be. We as Christians have historically gone to war, and we are freaking good warriors, okay? Because you have a warrior that has the Spirit of God on their side, you're toast. Think of Samson who killed those Philistines with a donkey jawbone. Like, that's freaking nuts, because he had the power of God on his side. So I'm just saying, like, you don't want to go up against a Christian. I would go up against an atheist any day, because they're easy compared to, like, if you fight someone that has the power of God, it's like, I've been in a room with someone where I said something wrong, And great, so China sends 3 nukes, but then we send 1, LOL. Yeah, well, but China doesn't have the laws to protect Christianity. That's the thing that I keep saying. Because they've got social credit scores, and they've got, they're a majority atheist country, if you go and take a look. Whereas the United States is actually a majority Christian country, 56% Christian. Don't answer what one? Okay, anyway. So, we already read the one that says, if he trespass against thee, rebuke him, and if he repents, forgive him. So then Jesus goes on to tell us how we can know that a man has repented. And he says that we can know that a man has repented if he confesses his sins and forsakes them. Then we can know that the person has repented. And so that's when we forgive them 70 times 7, right? But here's the thing, like, you're blessed if you forgive them 70 times 7. But if on the 3rd time you're done with their crap, there's nothing morally wrong in the scriptures, scripturally speaking, about you retaliating with the same level of force that they've brought forward to you. That's the reason why Joshua was able to go against Jericho. That's the reason why, thank you for agreeing with that. Like, honestly, help me preach that, because we need more Christians in the United States to learn how to stand up and not be, I want to say, protoplasmic supine invertebrate jellies, which is a insult that the British Prime Minister used one time. Not have a backbone. We need our Christians in the United States to gain a backbone and be able to say, like, no, your bullshit's wrong. I'm sorry, it's just wrong. And we're gonna fight on behalf of our freedom, our liberty, our lands, our people, and that's a Christian thing to do. It's okay to fight back. It's good to fight back, provided that there are, like, certain patterns met. And most of that is, like, tit for tat with an olive branch, right? So Sir Axelrod did a program where he did a war game where he allowed people to submit their own programs, and they could submit anything. And the programs kind of had specific types of categories. So the first kind of category of program was cooperation programs. And those cooperation programs would always choose to help the other person out, even if it was a disadvantage to themselves. And that creates peace as long as there's just cooperation, right? Because there's peace across the board. Everyone's being nice to each other. But the second you put in one dictatorship program, and a dictatorship program always chooses defection or always chooses to take advantage of the other person. The second you put in one dictatorship program, all of those cooperation programs will die, and the dictatorship program will be the only one left. If you have multiple dictatorship programs, then they all fight one another, and there's just constant tumult, and there's never going to be peace. So they had a hero program that arrived, and the hero program was called Tit for Tat. And Tit for Tat had extreme wisdom about how to deal with each of these program strategies and create the most peace across the board. What it did is anytime another program cooperated, it would cooperate back on that turn. And then anytime a program defected, it would defect back on that next turn. But this also caused kind of a bit of a cycle, because 2 tit-for-tat programs could get into a cycle where one would defect, the other would cooperate, one would defect, the other would cooperate, and it would just kind of go in a circle. So what they did is they created a program called Tit for Tat with an olive branch. So Tit for Tat would always assume positive intent first, and then would defect or cooperate based on the other program. And then if they got into a cycle, it would occasionally just throw out an olive branch. It would just occasionally be like, yeah, we're all good, man. And that's what Jesus was talking about when he was saying, love your enemies, okay? Because the Jews and the Samaritans at the time, they had gotten into this cycle of this tit-for-tat cycle. And Jesus was trying to teach them how to do that olive branch part that was necessary for their 2 societies to come back into peace. In our society today, that is not what's happening, okay? We're not in a tit-for-tat cycle. We're in a cycle where the dictatorship programs are completely overwhelming all of the cooperation programs because there aren't enough tit-for-tat programs. Tit-for-tat programs, we protect We protect those cooperation programs. If you do not have us, you will all die. All of the cooperation programs will die. Tit for tat programs are necessary. And when I mean that, I mean righteous warriors who are able to stand up for truth and righteousness wherever you are. That's what all of the prophets have been. They've all been righteous warriors. Not a single one has been, God, Jesus even says, like, what came ye to see? A reed shaken in the wind? And he was talking about John the Baptist, because people were like, oh, I don't know, he's kind of speaking hard and he's kind of bold, like, I just don't know if that's really a man of God. Yeah, that's what a man of God looks like. That's what a woman of God looks like. It looks like somebody saying, no, that's the truth. And I'm going to stick by it because that's correct. Okay, so I talked about that. I also wanted to talk about the title of liberty. Let me see if I can find that really quick here. Jesus said to love enemies. I think the Lord said, consider them human and give them a chance to live. Yeah, but Agag also had his armies. Agag, who was the prophet at the time. No, not Agag. Solomon? There was a prophet, Samuel maybe, Solomon, I don't know, but he slew Agag. And he took the people and he had his soldiers bow on the necks of his enemies. So, no, Christianity is not always kind. Christianity is sometimes warlike. And it is correct in its warriorness. Just like Moses with the Canaanites, just like Elijah with the priests of Baal, just like a lot of the... Yeah, so let's read the title of liberty. Just a second here. Where did I put it? Oh, there it is, okay. This is in the Book of Mormon. It says, and now it came to pass that when Moroni, who was the chief commander of the armies of the Nephites, had heard of these dissensions, he was angry with Amalickiah. And it came to pass that he rent his coat, and he took a piece thereof, and wrote upon it, in memory of our God, our religion, and freedom, and our peace, our wives, and our children. And he fastened it upon the end of a pole, and he fastened it on his head plate, and his breastplate, and his shields, and girded on his armor about his loins. And he took the pole, on which he had on the end thereof his rent coat, and he called it the title of liberty. And he bowed himself to the earth, and he prayed mightily to his God for the blessings of liberty to rest upon his brethren, so long as there should be a band of Christians remain to possess the land. Notice in the scriptures, the Israelites did not fight on behalf of the Canaanites who were sacrificing their children to Baal, who were burning their children to Baal. If our country becomes so wicked that we continue with all of this wickedness that has been happening in our country, we will fall. God will not support us. For thus were all the true believers of Christ who belonged to the church of God called by those who did not belong to the church. So they're saying all of them were called Christians. And to those who did belong to the church, were faithful. Yea, all those who were true believers in Christ took upon them gladly the name of Christ, or Christians as they were called, because of their belief in Christ who should come. And therefore, at this time, Moroni prayed that the cause of the Christians and the freedom of the land might be favored. And it came to pass that when he had poured out his soul to God, he named all of the land which was south of the land Desolation. So he said, this is the section of land that I'm praying for. And he said, surely God shall not suffer that we, who are despised because we take upon us the name of Christ, shall be trodden down and destroyed, until we bring it upon us by our own transgressions. So again, he's saying, like, we will not be destroyed unless we turn wicked. And if we turn wicked, we will no longer have the power and protection of Heavenly Father on our country. And he said, surely And when Moroni had said these words, he went forth among the people, waving the rent part of his garment in the air, that all might see the writing which he had written upon the rent part, and crying with a loud voice, saying, behold, whosoever will maintain this title upon the land, let them come forth in the strength of the Lord, and enter into a covenant that they will maintain their rights and their religion, that the Lord may bless them. And it came to pass that when Moroni had proclaimed these words, behold, the people came running together with their armor girded about their loins, rending their garments in token, or as a covenant, that they would not forsake the Lord their God. Or in other words, if they should transgress the commandments of God, or fall into transgression, and be ashamed to take upon them the name of Christ, the Lord should rend them even as they had rent their garments. Now this was the covenant that they made. And they cast their garments at the feet of Moroni, saying, we covenant with our God that we shall be destroyed, even as our brethren in the land northward, if we shall fall into transgression. Yea, he may cast us at the feet of our enemies, even as we have cast our garments at thy feet to be trodden under foot, if we shall fall into transgression. Moroni said unto them, let us remember to keep the commandments of God, or our garments shall be rent by our brethren. We shall be cast into prison, or sold, or be slain. And now it came to pass that when Moroni had said these words, he went forth, and also sent forth in all the parts of the land where there were dissensions, and gathered all the people who were desirous to maintain their liberty, to stand against Amalickiah and those who had dissented, who were called the Amalekites. It's really important that we come out of those wicked ones. So right now in the United States, there's 56% Christian, and the other 50% are not Christian. And it's really hard to be good, safe, I would say, in a society where you're mixed in with those who are wicked. So what we need to do is we need to start finding allies. We need to start like you're in your workplace or whatever. You start finding, oh, you're Christian? Okay, cool. Like, I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna support you. And we need to be doing it surreptitiously at first, because in our country, it's politically speaking, it's a protected class, right? But the thing that they don't understand is that being atheist is not a protected class. You don't get to be atheist. You get to be some type of theist. And what I mean when I say that is you get to have some type of morality. And you can choose if you want to bow to this freaking deodorant, I don't care. But you have to have some sort of like moral code. You have to have some sort of like belief in the inherent worth of human beings. You have to have some sort of belief in the inherent worth of creation. Right now in the United States, people are trying to say that freedom of religion means that you can totally destroy anything and believe in the full destruction of creation itself, and that's okay. That's not correct at all. We put those people who actually act on those beliefs in prison. That's where they go. If you murder people because you've acted on a belief that human life does not have inherent worth and value, if you've acted on a belief that evil is okay, you get put in jail. That's how that's happened for history. No country ever has just allowed murderers to walk the street. That's not a thing that we do. So you do get to have freedom of religion. That's totally fine for you to figure out if you want to bow to the deodorant or not. But again, you have to have some morals. Otherwise, no, I'm not just going to stand by while these atheists just say like, yeah, it's totally. I had a debate with a lady recently, and I said, is there anything of value to you? Anything that's important? Or is everything all meaningless? And she said, well, she started to kind of say, well, my kids. And I said, oh, okay, so your kids are valuable. You love your kids. You love your teenagers. You think that they're important and valuable? And she said, no, I guess you can kill my kids. What? You said what? Are you nuts? And this is what we're calling freedom of religion now. No, I'm sorry. Those people who honestly believe that it's okay to kill their mom or kill their teenagers or kill their child or kill people in general, you don't get to be in my country. You don't get to be my friend. That's a point that I will go to war over, because how can we even have a society of people like that if everyone's saying that, oh, it's fine to just murder people in the street? That's not a society. That's not one that I want to be a part of. So no, we need to make a choice. And the choice needs to be, we stand with the idea of creation. We stand with the idea that humans have inherent worth and value. Screw the whole rest of the world. Like, thank you. I appreciate that for the agreed on point. Okay, so we talked about the title of liberty, and I wanted to go back to talking about, I guess, the workplace, kind of. Hi, how's it going, Maymay? What have you thought about this so far, Maymay? Scriptures. Okay, I want to talk about levels of force as well. Okay, so morally speaking, and I'm not speaking legally, I'm speaking morally. Morally speaking, you are allowed to use whatever force is imminently intended against you. An equal level of force as to what's imminently intended against you. So if someone calls me a bad word, I am allowed to call them a bad word. I am not allowed to go and burn their house down. Also, Heavenly Father says, like, what we need to be doing is forgiving as much as possible. And if we forgive, we'll be blessed. But we don't have to, it's not a requirement that you always forgive someone who's trespassed against you. Again, Luke says, rebuke him, and then if he repents, forgive him. And you know if he's repented, if he has confessed his sins and forsaken them. That's an important part. If they just say, oh yeah, I punched that dude in the face, and then they don't stop punching dudes in the face, this is still not okay. Okay, we still need to say, don't do that. I don't know where I was going with this. I forgot. Crap. Oh, levels of force. Okay, so the levels of force are as follows. The first one is presence and avoidance, because that is a level of force in itself. You have gay rights activists. You can see this with the LGBTQ plus movement. How flamboyant are they? They really make their presence known, right? That is a level of force in and of itself. You can be in a room, right? What I've started doing in order to help the situation here in the United States is just walking into stores, walking into places and humming or singing Christian songs. I'm being loud and flamboyantly Christian, just like they're being loud and flamboyantly the opposite, or loud and flamboyantly LGBTQ+. It's a level of force. So you've got presence and avoidance, and then we could talk about nonverbal communication, so like being silent, or like, but that I would say that that's being silent or speaking, which is the second level of force. So you can be quiet, which is a type of force. Being quiet is a type of force, depending on what's happened before. So like, for instance, Gandhi, he would like fast so that people knew he was pissed off about something. So he would fast. But that only works if you speak. If you don't ever speak, if nobody knows your opinion and you just stay silent, you've done nothing. Okay, you're not using any sort of force against your adversary, and you need to be using force against your adversary. So the second level is speaking versus staying silent. The third level is combat, non-lethal combat without weapons, and then non-lethal combat with weapons, and then lethal combat without weapons, and then lethal combat with weapons. Those are all the levels of force. So again, you're allowed to use whatever level of force is imminently intended against you. So let's take this to an extreme example. In the Civil War, we had General P. Sherman. Yes. The reason why we won the Civil War is because General P. Sherman decided on total war ideology, which was just, we're going to fuck up our enemy as much as possible. Newsflash, General P. Sherman was a Christian, BT dubs, as was Abraham Lincoln, who also signed off on this strategy. So he would just let his troops be as violent as they wanted to the civilians in that area. And the reason why they did that is because he literally writes that, like, he saw the future of the war, and he saw that if he didn't stop the war then, that the war would continue going and that they would lose more and more people. And the only way to stop it was if they were as brutal as possible in that moment. Another example of this is when the United States dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. We did the same thing. We went, okay, you're gonna imminently intend to use lethal force against our people to the nth degree, then we're going to use so much lethal force that you cannot stand against us any further. So then we got, the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The majority of cases, though, you don't need to go nuclear. Usually you can just, if a person slaps you, you slap them back. If a person, says a mean word, you can say a mean word back. To a point, right? Because Jesus also talks about in the scriptures about how you should be as smart as a serpent, but as gentle as a dove. So you want to be most like, especially with speech. With speech, I've had a hard time. I've not had a hard time. I've done a lot of study to understand speech, and avoiding logical fallacies in speech, including ad hominem fallacies, which ad hominem means like insulting the other person. That's really a good thing. That's a good thing if you don't because you're actually caring about the content of the argument instead of just trying to piss off the other person or hurt the other person or whatever. So yeah. Also, because I don't think that people understand this, that all conflict is communication. If you're fighting and you're punching someone, you're still communicating until one of you is dead. Until one of you is dead. And then you're no longer communicating. But when you're alive, all of that fighting is an ideological communication between your types of values, between whatever it is that you're fighting over, whether it's, I want the ice cream, or something greater, like, religious values and beliefs. I think that might be most of what I wanted to talk about. So to sum up, I'm just going to say, oh, thanks. I give you love too. To sum up, I'm just going to say, the United States is important. We're the linchpin for freedom. I don't want Russia and China to win. Most of the United States is Christian, but we all aren't saying that, and we're all not standing up for our Christianity, which is bad. We should start doing that. We need to, I want to talk about strategies that you guys can use to try and increase the Christianity in your areas. Speak, speak, speak. That's the strategy. And you need to be careful, though, who you speak to. Draw close to those who draw close to you, and stay away from anybody who's an enemy. Literally anybody who's like, oh, I like, Satan. I like darkness. You need to shut up and listen to them, because they do like darkness. They do like Satan. They said it. All right, listen. Don't think, oh, they're a good person and I could change them if I just, no, none of that, okay? If they said it, they think that, and you can kind of share things sometimes, but you want to share with them little bits, and only when they're turning towards the light. So when they turn towards the light, then you say okay, I'm gonna share the light with you. That's a little different, being emo and Christian. That's kind of more like a self-destructive thing. And that doesn't mean you're not Christian. It just probably means you struggle with self-worth, which I really understand, dude. I feel you. But Jesus loves you, and you can overcome that. But being with your family, because I know your family situation, you're going to struggle to do that when you're with your family, because your family doesn't like your light. Sorry. I wish your family did. But yeah. Anyway, so, and you need to protect your light from your family a little bit, saying like you are important, you are valuable. Your life is just as important as their lives, and your beliefs are just as important as their beliefs. I wish someone had told me that when I was younger, because I really thought that I was shit, and that's not true. You're important and valuable. Jesus literally says, love thy neighbor as thyself. He doesn't say more than thyself. He says as thyself. So you're just as important as your neighbor. I would say you take care of yourself first. You take care of your neighbor second. Personal opinion, but that might not be Jesus's opinion. My age, I'm 28. Yeah. Anyway, okay, so I wanted to tell you, I forgot what I was going to tell you about. It was something, strategies. Okay. Humming has been a good one for me. I hum Christian songs, and I see how the people around me react. And the reason why that works in the United States is because They haven't guardrailed music yet. They haven't told us, oh, you can't listen to that song. So I'll take Christian music and I will hum it, and or I will sing Christian anthems in space, in public spaces, and that way I can watch how people react, because people will react like, they'll either be like, ew, and then I'm like, oh, don't talk to that person. And then if they're like, wow, that's cool, then I'm like, oh, okay, go talk to that person. You know, like I'm gonna support him, and then we're gonna reciprocate. Because when I was younger, I was like, oh, if I just tell everybody that I'm Christian, then they're gonna help me, or I'm gonna help them. More it was for them, because I thought, like, if I just share my light, then they'll get light too. I didn't understand that people attack light when they see it. I did not understand that, and now I understand that they will hurt you for your light. So you got to be careful who you're telling, but you also don't want to be quiet. Okay. Okay, so that's a strategy. And then another strategy I've already talked about, like looking for and liaisoning with. When you liaison with Christians, I don't want to talk about this, right? I don't want to talk about relationship stuff. If you are interested in dating, send me a DM. I don't know what else to tell you at the moment. Humming has been a good one. What other strategies have I learned? Oh, the mental health strategies. Did I tell you guys about that already? I want to tell you about that. They keep trying to say that I'm mentally ill because I believe in Christ. That has been happening a lot. And so how you get around that is you can't show any emotion, and you have to say, like when they bring you in to like check your mental health because you're crazy because you believe in Christ, right? I had a friend who was praying, like she got sent to the mental hospital and she was praying, and they said she was schizophrenic because she was praying, and now she's like forced to take medication for that, which is this is a war thing. Like, that's not good, okay? You don't call someone schizophrenic because they're praying. But anyway, okay. When they bring you in, what you need to do is say, I am at peace. You don't have any other emotion. You're not happy. You're not sad. I mean that they dragged her to the Mental Health Institute and they forced her to be there against her will. In fact, here in the United States, if you are dragged to the Mental Health Institute, you can be forcefully given medication against your will. You do not need to agree to it. You can even be institutionalized, like forced to be basically in mental health prison, like for an extended period of time without your consent because they think you're crazy. And that has been happening more and more often to Christians, because if you have any sort of offensive ideologies, right, then it's like, okay, well, you're mentally ill, so go to this hospital and get drugged. It's like, I didn't want that. I don't feel like I'm mentally ill because I'm Christian. That's not a thing. How about perspectives? In the United States, they don't like diverse perspectives. They say they do. They will say diversity, diversity, diversity. But the second that you actually step out of the box and have a different idea, no, they try and crush you. So you got to be careful who you share your ideas with. You check and see. You like share a little bit, and then you check and see kind of how they react. And if they react well, then you can tell them more. If they react badly, you shut the fuck up and you walk away, because you don't want to talk to that person. And that's how you can actually flip an entire workplace, or you can flip wherever, by going and talking with the people who believe a little bit of what you believe, and then you strengthen them. And then you go around and you strengthen all your allies. And eventually, when you strengthen all your Christian allies, you'll kick out the evil. They'll feel uncomfortable with the environment that they're in, and they'll leave on their own, usually. So, you are beautiful. Thanks. Thanks for not wanting bad things to happen to me. That's actually really kind. Anyway. Okay. What else can I tell you about? I was trying to tell you strategies. Oh yeah, I'm at peace. That's what you want to tell the mental health people. You want to tell the mental health people, I am at peace. I want to survive. I want to live. You have to tell them I don't want to hurt other people and I don't want to hurt myself. You have to tell them that, and it doesn't matter if they don't care. The mental health people in the United States do not care if your story is true or not. They are not looking for whether or not your story is true. They are looking for whether or not you're emotional. They don't care about the truth of your story. So that's ridiculous to me, first off, and also disgusting. The fact that they can just lock you away, whether your story's true or not, because you feel emotional about it. Horrible. Okay, so yeah, you want to say, I'm at peace, I want to survive, and then I don't want to hurt myself or other people. And that's how you can get out of a mental health snafu. You just keep repeating that over and over like a freaking mantra. And then you also, some other pits to avoid are like, they'll ask you like, do you have other people that you talk to? Yes, you always have other people that you talk to, and they always like you, and you need to always say that they like you. It doesn't matter what your feelings are at that point in time. If you want to get out of going to the mental health hospital, that's what you have to say. And they'll also ask you like, if other people think, because they're always looking to see what other people think, right? They don't actually care what's true. They just want to know what the group thinks and if you're in line with the group. So they'll be like, well, do other people believe what you believe? And you need to, here's the thing. You can frame a narrative in such a way that you completely change the audience's perspective, in such a way that you completely change your workplace's perspective, your family's perspective. And how you do that is you maintain the narrative. So if you're going to tell them like, yes, other people do believe what I believe, here are some names, right? Whether they do or not, that's up to you. But I'm just saying you need to have other people, air quotes, that believe what you believe. And then that will help you avoid getting forcefully drugged. Oh, I also had you also can be strapped down in the United States forcefully if you're mentally ill, air quotes. They can put you in like restraints. I've seen people in leg restraints, in arm restraints, and in straitjackets as well. Who are you talking about? Why would you need to talk to them? You can get put in the mental hospital for any sort of belief that the group doesn't agree with. Oh, and it goes based on preponderance of evidence here in the United States, not beyond a shadow of a doubt. Beyond a shadow of a doubt is the type of legal burden of proof that you need here in the United States, and that means like, okay, bye. So that means like you proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that this person did in fact commit this crime. Bye, Jose. And that's not the case for the mental hospital. For the mental hospital, it's like 50%, you only need 50% likelihood that the person is in fact crazy. It's not even 50%, it's less than that. It's like a suggestion, like you only need a suggestion. It's preponderance of evidence. You can Google that term, preponderance of evidence. It only needs to be 50% likely that you're actually crazy. I think it was 50%, it might be less. Anyway, all they need is basically just to believe that there's a possibility, and then you can be forcefully kept against your will, drugged against your will, and put in like restraints. How was your doctor wrong? What did they do? Your doctor was wrong, man. That's interesting. I might be kind of out of things to say regarding the political situation in the United States, but we have been talking for about an hour. We covered Jesus and war. I think that was a pretty good one. I felt good about this. Do you want to tell me how your doctor was wrong? They listened to my podcast. Your doctor was wrong. They listened to my podcast. I don't know what to do about that. I'm sorry, question mark? Or not? I don't know. If they listen to my podcast, that's not good because now they know my tricks. Okay, well, do you guys have any questions? I'll probably end here soon if you guys don't have any questions. I'll wait for just a little bit for you to type. Oh, we could talk about, I wanted to talk to you guys too about robots in the war, because this next war is going to be really interesting, because I was watching an ATF person, and the ATF regulates firearms here in the United States. You can 3D print a gun, an actual gun that will actually fire, and you can just 3D print it here in the United States. Not just in the United States, you can 3D print it anywhere. But he was talking about this next war because he was saying you could also 3D print bombs. You should not I'm not agreeing, I'm not saying that you should do this. I'm just speaking about the possibilities. I'm not telling you to, don't bomb anything, okay? Please, God. Okay, he was saying that you could homemake a 3D printed bomb, which means you could pretty much homemake a 3D printed anything. If you wanted to homemake a robot, you could homemake a robot and screw crap up with that, because in Ukraine right now, they've got drone swarms. They're fighting with drone swarms. So they have like a drone that comes and the multiple drones will come and attack a bomber, like a plane. And they will also they have drones that will, little mini tanks that will drive, and then they have like 50 caliber machine guns that are mounted on the tank, and then they'll attack things with that as well. I don't think I'm allowed to tell you about bombs. Oh well. I'm so gonna get banned, but that's fine. I would better 3D print cakes. I'll just come back with another email. Just wait. 3D print cakes. I don't think you can eat that. It's usually plastic. Oh, I think they do have edible printers, don't they? They're trying to get where you can 3D print food. I don't know if I want 3D printed. Eventually I will, but not right now, because I think most of it's probably pink slime. This is a little bit off topic, but I was thinking about it yesterday, and I was imagining, I went into the grocery store, and the grocery store is full of sodas with most of them have artificial sweeteners, and a whole bunch of junk food that's just lining the shelves. And I was just thinking about the fact that you can homemake a soda with berries and stuff like that. And I was imagining a totally different kind of gas station. What if the gas station had healthy food? What if the gas station had healthy soda? And it was just, for me, it was kind of a juxtaposition of Satan's world, which is fake and artificial and gross and not healthy and actively trying to kill you, and then Heavenly Father's world, which is in my mind, it's full of light and good tasting soda and good tasting fruits and vegetables and good, also the kind of that home vibe where you have that person who actually cares about what they're doing and what's going on. So, and we could have that in our society, but instead we actively choose the opposite, which is just, I don't understand. It's a technology you can 3D print anything, even a house. Wow. Yeah. I have seen 3D printed houses. Those are pretty neat, bricks and stuff like that. All right. I think I'm done. I don't really have anything else to talk about today, so I'll come back another time when I have more information to give you. Peace out.